Wilson and you're watching A News. Let's take a look at today's developing stories. US and Israel attack Iran. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps retaliates by targeting Israel. Former US President Bill Clinton testified privately in a probe about Jeffrey Epstein, denying any knowledge of his crimes. And Trump orders the government to stop using Anthropic in the battle over AI use. Thanks for joining us. The United States and Israel have launched a joint attack on Iran, sharply escalating the tensions in the region. At least 60 students were killed in the southern Iranian city of Manab, according to Iranian media. Tehran has since responded with strikes on US bases in the Gulf.
The United States and Israel launch an attack on Iran as President Donald Trump confirms major combat operations are underway. Smoke rose over Tehran early Saturday after Israel said it carried out what it called a preemptive strike. Iran has already launched retaliatory strikes against Israel. A statement from the Israeli Defense Forces confirmed this. It said the Israeli Air Force is working to intercept and strike threats where necessary to remove them. Iran's state-affiliated Fars news agency reported that explosions were heard in the cities of Isfahan, Qom, Karaj and Kermanshah, as well as in Tehran. The Pentagon says US strikes on Iran are called Operation Epic Fury. President Trump confirmed the attack, saying Iran is rebuilding its nuclear program and developing missiles that could threaten the US and its allies.
For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also issued a statement. He said the joint action with the US would help give the Iranian people the chance to shape their own future. Netanyahu marked the operation is named the Roar of the Lion. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz announced a state of emergency across Israel and warned of possible further retaliation. This morning, Israel's army sent a nationwide alert to mobile phones. The message told people to identify their nearest safe space and to follow instructions from the military's home front command.
Use the coming time to get to know and prepare the optimal protected space near you. At this time, the local authorities are opening the public shelters for you. The forces are deployed, alert, and ready to provide an immediate response to ensure your safety. Follow the Home Front Command's instructions, they save lives.
Israeli media reported that Israel has closed its airspace to civilian flights. Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps also confirmed that Iran has also closed its airspace.
Well, Iran has called for an urgent meeting of the Security Council on the US-Israel air raids on Monday, vowing strong retaliation to the attacks. Meanwhile, massive cyber attacks have struck Iran, disrupting major state news agencies, according to local media reports. Our correspondent Taraz Shiralilu has more from Tehran.
Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baqai announced that Tehran has demanded urgent convention of the UN Security Council in New York after US and Israel attacked Iran on Saturday. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who earlier this week held indirect nuclear talks with US in Geneva, had phone contacts with his counterparts on the ongoing developments, urging them to condemn the attacks. Meantime, Iran's Revolutionary Guards announced that it has targeted Israel and US bases in the region, including Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait, with ballistic missiles and drones in retaliation to the attacks. Iran's Red Crescent Society has confirmed that dozens of students were killed and injured in early hours of the attacks in a girls' school in Minab, southern Hormuzgan province. Iran's Supreme National Security Council, in a statement, announced that schools and universities will be closed until further notice, but banks will be open. Turaj Shiralilu, reporting from Tehran, Foreign News.
A loud explosion was reported in Abu Dhabi whilst shelter alerts sounded across Qatar after the Defence Ministry said an Iranian missile had been intercepted by the Patriot defence system. The blasts were heard in Kuwait as Gulf states took emergency precautions. Qatar, Kuwait and the UAE have closed their airspace. Explosions were also reported in Bahrain, where the headquarters of the US Navy's 5th Fleet was targeted. The Bahrain Interior Ministry urged citizens and residents to head to the nearest safe place, activating alarm sirens. The US Embassy in Bahrain also advised Americans to shelter in place, citing reports of potential missile and drone threats. Well, air travel across the Middle East is under growing strain after US and Israeli strikes on Iran sharply escalated tensions in the region. Several countries, including Israel, Iran, Iraq and Jordan, have closed their airspace, forcing global airlines to cancel or reroute flights. The region has become a vital corridor between Europe and Asia, especially with Russian and Ukrainian airspace largely unavailable due to years of war. Now, carriers face longer routes, higher fuel costs and rising safety concerns as conflict zones pose increasing risks to civilian aircraft. The confrontation between Israel and Iran is intensifying, with missile exchanges and coordinated military action, drawing the United States further into the conflict. As leaders frame the campaign as a move to remove long-standing threats, the region faces a rapidly widening and unpredictable crisis. Our correspondent Maria Rodriguez reports from Tel Aviv.
Israeli forces intercepted several Iranian missiles over Tel Aviv as joint USA-Israeli strikes on Iran continue following Tehran's early barrage and Netanyahu's announcement of a coordinated campaign to eliminate the Iranian threat. Iranian media reported that 30 missiles were fired toward northern Israel. The developments come amid a sharp military escalation between Israel and Iran. Early Saturday morning, Israel and the United States jointly launched strikes on Iranian territory, targeting several cities across the country. As of now, no confirming reports or human or material losses have been announced. Netanyahu thanked Trump for his help in eliminating, as he said, the existential threat posed by Iran, which for 47 years cried death to both countries. The Prime Minister Netanyahu said that the conditions will be created so that the brave Iranian people can take their destiny in their own hands.
If you're just joining us, the United States and Israel have launched strikes on Iran, plunging the Middle East into a new conflict. While tensions escalate, citizens in Israel are voicing their reactions, with some expressing surprise at the timing and others offering support for the military campaign.
Amid rising tensions, Israelis are welcoming a new military campaign against Iran. Residents are reacting, with some surprised by the timing, while others express support and hope that the operation will strengthen the country's security. While talking about attacks, some residents said they had expected Washington to take the lead.
To say the truth, I'm quite surprised that Israel is the first one to attack. I was expecting the United States to attack first. I'm not sure that it's good for Israel to be the first one, but once it's taken and once it's done, I think and the hope for a great change in the Mediterranean.
Others expressed strong support for the operation, voicing confidence and a sense of urgency as tensions rise. According to them, it is exact time for operations.
Everything is going to be okay. It's about time. I don't want to wait anymore for what's coming. Now it's coming, let's finish it and let's start the day. We've got Purim in 3 days, celebration of freedom. And it's kind of the history repeats itself because it was with Iran in Diamond Passion and it's coming back.
Citizens also emphasise the need for Israel to act decisively, arguing that showing strength is crucial in protecting the nation from regional threats.
The attack about Israel and the American attack on Iran, that I think it's something we had to do. We see our enemies trying to get us back into war and to attack and threaten us, and they didn't have enough, and we need to protect ourselves. And I think with the Arab enemies, we noticed, I'm 43, I've knew some wars in my life, that we have to be the first. We have to establish that we are strong, we are not scared, and we are here to protect our land.
As tensions continue to rise across the region, public reactions in Israel show a mix of surprise, support and resolve, highlighting the deep concern over national security and the ongoing conflict in the Middle East.
Meanwhile, Iranians are reacting to the strikes in Van City of Turkey while crossing between borders. Iranian people have shared their expressions. At the Kapakoy border gate, Iranian citizens expressed their support and hope for military operations. Speaking to the media, Iranians say they are ready to fight for their country. They consider that the official Tehran government will be able to overcome the situation.
God willing, it will end well for us. At the moment, my family is still in our hometown, which is why I am going back to Iran. I will go fight. If they wanted me to go, I would.
They will come barking like dogs, and then they will leave. They cannot do any harm to Iran. The Iranian government and Iranian people will never bow down.
As fighting intensifies between Iran, Israel and the United States, governments across Europe, the Middle East and beyond are scrambling to respond. From urgent diplomatic outreach to warnings about sovereignty and regional stability, international pressure is building to prevent a wider war.
World leaders are reacting strongly to the escalating conflict involving Iran, the United States and Israel. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa said developments are greatly concerning. They urged all sides to show maximum restraint, protect civilians and respect international law. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas called the situation perilous. She said the bloc is working with Arab partners to explore diplomatic solutions. Kallas also confirmed she spoke with Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar and said Europe's consular network is helping EU citizens leave affected areas. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said Iran has destabilized the region for decades by backing militant groups and repressing its own people. He said Ukraine supports the Iranian people. Russia called for an immediate halt to US and Israeli strikes, urging a return to political and diplomatic efforts. Moscow said the international community should assess actions that risk further destabilizing the region. Belgium, Norway and Pakistan condemned what they described as unwarranted attacks on Iran and called for restraint. In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Kuwait condemned Iranian strikes on their territories. Saudi Arabia denounced violations of the sovereignty of the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait and Jordan, and warned of serious consequences. Kuwait said the attack violated its airspace and international law and stated it reserves the right to respond.
Meanwhile, Iran has imposed a full blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. The full closure of the Strait of Hormuz poses a threat to global energy supply chains. Under normal conditions, 30% of the world's oil and 20% of global liquefied natural gas consumption are transported through the strait. To other news now, and former US President Bill Clinton testified behind closed doors in a congressional probe linked to the case of Jeffrey Epstein, denying any knowledge of the late financer's crimes. His appearance came a day after Hillary Clinton also told lawmakers she was unaware of Epstein's activities and had no ties to him. The questioning is part of a wider review connected to files released by the US Department of Justice. In his statement to lawmakers, Clinton said he saw nothing and did nothing wrong, adding he had only limited contact with Epstein and cut ties before his 2008 conviction.
First, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos they show of me, I have two things that at the end of the day matter far more than any interpretation of 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. And I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong. As someone who grew up in a home with domestic violence, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, not the sweetheart deal that we got.
The Trump administration ordered all US agencies to halt the use of AI technology from Anthropic on Friday, escalating tensions between the government and the company. This move follows a public clash over Anthropic's refusal to grant the military unfettered access to its tools, raising concerns over AI safety and national security.
On Friday, US President Donald Trump announced that he would direct all federal agencies to immediately cease using AI technology developed by the company Anthropic. Trump emphasized that the United States does not require this technology. This move would make Anthropic the first US company to publicly face such an order. In response, the company stated late Friday that it will challenge any supply chain risk designation in court. The conflict began after Anthropic refused to meet White House demands to grant the US military unfettered access to its AI tools, including the widely used Claude model. This refusal prompted US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to label Anthropic a supply chain risk. Anthropic has raised concerns over the potential use of its AI tools, like Claude, by the government in what it calls mass surveillance and the development of fully autonomous weapons. Despite these concerns, Hegseth and the Pentagon have insisted that Anthropic comply with the request, agreeing to allow any lawful use of its technology. Since 2024, Anthropic's tools have been in use by US government and military agencies, including those involved in classified operations. This legal and political standoff marks a critical moment in the growing debate over the use of AI in national security and ethical governance.
A deadly plane crash in Bolivia has triggered scenes of chaos, with authorities investigating what caused a military cargo aircraft to veer off a runway and slam into a busy urban area.
At least 15 people have been killed and dozens injured after a Bolivian Air Force cargo plane crashed in El Alto near the capital La Paz, according to authorities. The C-130 Hercules aircraft skidded off the runway while attempting to land on Friday evening after flying from Santa Cruz. It then ploughed into a nearby road, striking vehicles and causing widespread damage. Officials said the plane was carrying newly printed banknotes for Bolivia's central bank. 8 crew members were on board. The health ministry reported at least 30 people were injured, while emergency teams rushed victims to hospitals and appealed for blood donations. Witnesses described severe weather at the time of the crash, including heavy hail and lightning. The cause remains under investigation. Chaotic scenes unfolded after the accident as crowds gathered and some people tried to collect scattered banknotes. Police used tear gas to disperse looters, and authorities said several arrests were made. El Alto International Airport was temporarily closed following the crash.
After the break, we'll have more on the latest strikes carried out by Israel and the United States on Iran, as well as Iran's response. Welcome back to A News. Now, to analyse the current developments on this breaking story in the Middle East, we are joined by former diplomat Matthew Breezer. Thank you for being with us. Now, when you first heard this news, what was your immediate reaction?
I'd been expecting some sort of U.S. attack on Iran. I'd been talking about that here on news and elsewhere for weeks. But I was surprised that President Trump so openly declared that the U.S. objective was regime change. I expected the U.S. military actions to be what they seem to have been so far today, which means to try to destroy Iran's ballistic missile facilities, assassinate some of its political leaders, maybe destroy some more of Iran's nuclear program capabilities, try to destroy the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps personnel and facilities as well. And that's what the U.S. has done. It's also apparently attacked and done severe damage to Iran's Navy so that the Navy can't close the Strait of Hormuz, or so it's more difficult. So all of those specific actions were what I expected. But for President Trump to say so openly that the objective is to eliminate Iran's clerical regime, that was quite a surprise.
And whenever there is instability in Iran, regime change is something that is often talked about, and we ask ourselves, is this the closest we've ever come to that happening? What do you think of this now? Is this going to be the turning point that makes that difference?
It depends on what happens militarily. So there are rumors that, and coming out of Israel, that Supreme Leader Khamenei was killed, as well as the Minister of Defense, Deputy Chief of the Military Staff, some security personnel. Foreign Minister Arakci came out just a few minutes ago and said, well, 2 military commanders were killed, but they weren't major commanders, and the Supreme Leader is safe. But there's been no statement yet from the Supreme Leader Khamenei. So regime change could happen if the leader Khamenei was killed, as well as his senior counterparts. And there was also a rumor earlier today that there was a meeting of senior Iranian government officials, including the supreme leader, early this morning, and that was why Israel struck that site and killed them all. Who knows if that's true? That would constitute regime change. But other than that, it's difficult, very difficult, to engineer the change of any regime, any political regime, from the air, from aerial bombardment alone. There need to be troops on the ground. Now, the United States has not mobilized large number of soldiers for a big military assault on Iran. It took months to do that for the U.S. attack on Iraq. I was working in the White House and was part of that planning with regard to Turkey. And that hasn't happened yet. But on the other hand, if the goal is to assassinate Iran's senior leaders to lay the foundation for regime change, that probably is possible, and they're most likely, well, there certainly could be intelligence assets from both the United States and Israel on the ground right now in Iran to do that, but we don't know yet.
And what about the timing of this? Why do you think President Trump has chosen today to make this move?
Well, as I was saying a moment ago, it could be that there was that meeting of high-level Iranian officials, top Iranian officials, that provided an opportunity to conduct a so-called decapitation attack and, eliminate all of Iran's senior political leaders in the hope that would catalyze, again, a national round of protests that would overthrow the regime. It could be that. It could also be that President Trump felt that the element of surprise would be maximized by attacking today, just one day after the Iranian side was giving very positive reports of the course of the negotiations with the United States that had been held for the last few days in Geneva. So if the Iranian government, maybe it was the Iranian government, thinks the negotiations with the U.S. are going well, so they convene a meeting in Tehran to discuss it, and the U.S. finds out about it, or Israel finds out about it, and then decides now's the time to attack. It could be. I'm speculating here, putting together reports that have been coming out in various other media all day, but they're totally plausible as a reason why the attack happened right now.
And how difficult do you think it's going to be to get the real sense from Iran of what's going on?
Well, I mean, it is, I guess what's behind your question is there is a war of narratives going on right now. And we will know if, in several days, Supreme Leader Khamenei doesn't surface and there are massive protests in the streets of Iran. So, Iran can't hide forever the truth if its leadership has been eliminated. Otherwise, I mean, we don't need Iran to tell us that the nature of Iran's retaliatory attacks against countries in the Gulf where the U.S. has a military presence, and I mean like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, Bahrain. The Saudi government issued a scathing condemnation of Iran today for its missile attacks on Saudi Arabian territory. So, Iran, there's nothing Iran can do really to counter that bit of truth that has come out. So I think, the Iranian government's narrative now isn't about us. They don't care about us observers. They care about surviving and not facing a national uprising again, like a couple of weeks ago. And so the main audience of their public statements is, I think, the people of Iran.
And do we have a sense of how they're reacting? Is it causing further protest against the government, or is it causing Iranian citizens to rally around their government? Do we have any sense of how the public's reacting?
We don't, because it's a moment of high tension and high drama in Iran. International news outlets that have correspondents there on the ground, like Al Jazeera, have shown footage of the city today, and there are no protests visible. And the analysis that various experts have been giving from the Gulf countries is that, probably maybe a half of Iranian society views these attacks as an opportunity to weaken and overthrow the regime, and probably the other half of society is going to rally around the Iranian flag and throw their support in this time of urgency to their government in response to the attacks.
And obviously you've got experience as a diplomat, and the 12-day war in June 2025 happened less than a year ago. So give us a sense of how unprecedented this is.
Yeah, you're right. I was, a U.S. conflict mediator, including for the Karabakh conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and I was in the middle of Russia's invasion of Georgia, also as sort of a mediator. So, yeah, these situations are familiar, but this is, in terms of U.S.-Iran relations, this sort of an attack by the United States and in conjunction or coordination with Israel is absolutely unprecedented. The United States, in 1953, together with the United Kingdom, engineered the overthrow of then leader of Iran, Mossadegh. But that didn't involve a large-scale U.S. military attack, and certainly didn't involve Israel, which was only 5 years old at the time. So this is unprecedented in terms of the scale of the military operation, and in terms of the open declaration by the U.S. president that the objective is to overthrow Iran's regime, and Israel's open statements that they're trying to kill all the leaders of Iran. I've never heard anything like that with regard to U.S. foreign policy, certainly toward Iran and other countries in the Middle East.
And it's all the more surprising that this has come from an America First president. That was how he was elected. So how are Trump voters and those in the U.S. reacting to this news?
That's a great question. In addition to what you just said, he attracted a lot of votes among younger men, in particular, 18 to 29 years old, by saying there will be no more U.S. wars, or U.S. won't get involved in any more wars, and he'll end the so-called forever wars. And here he is launching a war of choice. So already last week, there was some really surprising public opinion polling coming out that CNN shared, which was that those voters who were instrumental in Trump winning the presidency in the 2024 election, so those young male voters, are now turning against him, precisely because of what you said, because of his threats and now use of military force against Iran runs counter to America First and runs counter to his pledge not to get the U.S. embroiled in wars. So I think this is going to hurt him. It's going to hurt his base. It's really going to hurt him with the independent voters as well, that the Republican Party so needs if they wish to retain control of both houses of the U.S. Congress in November's midterm elections.
And this is a very broad question here, but do we have any sense of what's going to happen next over the next few days?
Nobody really knows, right? It depends on so many factors. How does the Iranian regime react? Is its leadership still alive? How much military force is the U.S. going to apply? I think what's likely is we'll see, the U.S. do all it can to destroy Iran's ballistic missiles and Navy, as it's already begun doing. So there'll be sustained U.S. attacks for a couple of days, I think. And Iran will do what it can to inflict damage and pain on the United States in the Middle East theater, in the hope that the costs that Iran imposes on the United States in deaths of U.S. soldiers will eventually play into the domestic U.S. political dynamic you and I were just discussing, and then Trump will back off. But I think what Trump is planning to do is bomb heavily for 2 days or 3 days, take a pause, give Iran the opportunity to comply with U.S. demands and not see further U.S. Attacks. And if Iran doesn't comply, then I think we'll see more U.S. attacks. And there'll be a cycle of that, a couple of days of attacks by the U.S. and Israel, then a pause for Iran to essentially to give up, and then another round of U.S. attacks. But, the U.S. can't conduct missile attacks ad infinitum because there is a growing shortage of U.S. air defense missiles in particular, because so many were used last June during the 12-day war to help Israel defend itself. And then there's also a growing shortage of U.S. offensive missiles like the Tomahawk cruise missiles.
And what about the US's allies in the Middle East, like the UAE, like Qatar? What do you think they'll be saying to President Trump as the days unfold?
Well, for quite some time, they, along with Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, as well as the Omani leadership, were saying, please, President Trump, don't use military force, and let's seek an agreement through negotiations. And as we already said yesterday, the news coming out of the Iranian side was that the Oman brokered negotiations in Geneva were going well. But Qatar and Saudi Arabia today issued harsh condemnations of Iran for attacking their territories, granted ostensibly U.S. military personnel, but their territories with ballistic missiles. The statement by the Saudi Arabian government was absolutely scathing and deeply condemnatory of Iran. So I think that the U.S.'s friends in the Gulf are not going to move against the United States. They've already come out against Iran, and I think now that, as the expression goes, the die has been cast and the U.S. has attacked, and now that Iran has retaliated against them, those Gulf countries, they will remain in the corner of the United States, understanding that what President Trump is doing is trying to use the calibrated use of force as a diplomatic tool to keep pressure on Iran to come back to the negotiating table and accede to U.S. demands.
And finally, Mr. Briza, how likely do you think that is? Do you think those Oman brokered negotiations are effectively over with now?
They're dead for now, of course. I mean, there's at least for today and tomorrow. But as I said, the U.S. approach seems like it's going to be to attack heavily with military force, then pause, and then see if Iran wants to negotiate, and which means agree to the lion's share of U.S. demands. And there's no way to predict what's going to happen until the military part plays itself out, and then the Iranian leadership has a chance to decide what it wants to do and how it wishes to react. And who knows how they want to react.
It's certainly one to watch, isn't it? Thank you very much, Mr. Briza, for joining us and providing your analysis.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the biggest story in the world today, yes.
Now, after a short break, we'll take a look at the major stories from the region. Welcome back to A News. Now, let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Fighting between Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban military entered its third day on Saturday following overnight clashes as the international community expressed increasing concern about the conflict and called for urgent talks.
Pakistan's strikes on Friday hit Taliban military installations and posts, including targets in Kabul and Kandahar, marking one of the deepest Pakistani incursions into its western neighbour in years, officials said. Islamabad accuses the Taliban of harbouring Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan militants, whom it says are waging an insurgency inside Pakistan, a charge the Taliban denies. According to the latest statement from Pakistan's Information Minister Ataullah Tarar, more than 331 Afghan Taliban fighters have been killed in clashes over the past few days. Residents in the Pakistani border town of Chaman called for peace and dialogue on Saturday, saying prolonged tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan have hurt businesses and livelihoods.
The situation in Sharman has been very bad for the past 3 days. We request the leaders on both sides of the border to control the situation. Our people are worried. Employment at the border has been closed for 7 to 8 months now.
We want the situation to be brought under control.
Their comments came after Pakistani airstrikes hit what officials described as a weapons depot on the western outskirts of Kabul overnight, triggering secondary explosions heard across parts of the Afghan capital. While tensions remain high, diplomatic efforts have gathered pace. The European Union, Russia, the United States and Iran have called on both sides to de-escalate and engage in dialogue, while the United Nations has urged an immediate end to hostilities.
Kazakhstan is moving ahead with a large-scale digital infrastructure project aimed at positioning the country as a regional hub for data processing and storage. Authorities say the initiative could become the largest of its kind in Central Asia, with significant investment and international participation expected. Our correspondent reports from Almaty.
Kazakhstan has launched a major digital infrastructure project with the construction of Central Asia's largest data center campus. The project, known as the Data Centers Valley, is being developed in the northern city of Ekibastuz. The region is one of the country's main industrial and energy hubs and has been selected to host a large-scale digital facility serving both regional and international markets. The plan is to build a data center campus with a total power capacity of up to 1 gigawatt. More than 1,000 hectares of land have already been allocated for the project. Authorities are working on securing power infrastructure, including the purchase of a substation and preparing additional state support measures for investors. A dedicated greenfield zone is also being developed to attract international technology partners. The facilities will meet the Tier C international reliability standard, allowing systems to operate continuously, including during maintenance. Connectivity is a key focus of the project. Network latency is expected to be reduced from 80 to 57 milliseconds, bringing performance closer to major European internet traffic exchange points. And according to government estimates, total investment in the data centers valley could reach around $30 billion. Officials say the project is expected to strengthen Kazakhstan's digital infrastructure, attract foreign investment and create new high-skilled jobs. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Georgia's European trajectory is under renewed pressure after Brussels warned that visa-free travel to the EU could be suspended for its citizens. Our correspondent Nini Nikolaishvili reports from Tbilisi.
The European Commission has confirmed that it has already partially suspended visa facilitation for Georgian diplomatic and service passport holders. In a letter to the Georgian opposition dated February 25, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen outlined deep concerns over what the EU describes as systemic and deliberate regression in governance, rule of law, anti-corruption efforts, and visa compliance. Under the EU's visa suspension mechanism, this is only the first phase. If Georgian authorities fail to address the identified shortcomings, the second phase could extend visa requirements to all Georgian citizens, effectively suspending the visa-free regime granted in 2017. The Commission has also called for the release of journalists, activists, and individuals it considers unjustly detained. At the same time, EU member states are discussing possible sanctions against those viewed as responsible for democratic backsliding. No unanimous decision has been reached yet, but negotiations are ongoing. The Georgian government rejects claims of democratic regression and maintains that it remains committed to its European integration path. Still, the stakes are concrete. Visa-free travel to the Schengen area has allowed millions of Georgians to travel for tourism, study, and business without bureaucratic barriers. If the suspension expands, the impact will not be symbolic. It will be felt at airports, consulates, and border crossings. Nini Nikolaishvili, Tbilisi, A News.
Kyrgyzstan and the European Union have agreed to develop a plan to remove Kyrgyz banks from sanctions list, a major step after several institutions were hit with restrictions for alleged sanctions evasion activities. Our correspondent Sevil Rajapova reports.
Kyrgyzstan is now working with the European Union on a roadmap to address sanctions that have affected parts of its banking sector. The move comes after the European Union added two Kyrgyz banks, Tolubai Bank and Eurasian Savings Bank, to its Russia-related sanctions list in October 2025. The decision followed talks between Deputy Prime Minister Daniyar Mangildiev and European Union sanctions envoy David O'Sullivan. The European Union's 19th sanctions package banned those institutions from conducting transactions with European counterparties and effectively cut them off from accessing key international financial channels, including correspondent banking services. These measures have complicated cross-border trade and remittances and are based on concerns that certain financial operations might have been used to circumvent sanctions imposed on Russia by the European Union and its partners. In addition to Tolubai and Eurasian Savings Bank, other Kyrgyz financial entities such as Karamat Bank and Capital Bank of Central Asia have faced sanctions from the United States and the United Kingdom earlier in 2025, linked to similar concerns. Under the new cooperation, Kyrgyz and European Union officials plan to enhance transparency, strengthen risk management systems, and establish clear criteria that could eventually lead to the phased removal of restrictions. The European envoy emphasized that the sanctions are intended to prevent their evasion, not to isolate Kyrgyzstan, and that constructive dialogue could help facilitate adjustments where warranted. Lifting sanctions could help restore international banking links and ease pressure on Kyrgyz businesses and remittances. It is Sevil Rajab reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
Coming up next on A News is a context special on the latest ongoing developments in the Middle East. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.